Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Stern, partner in the law firm of Davidow, Siegel Stern, Long Island's elder law, special needs and estate planning firm where the best advice leads to lasting solutions. Davidow, Siegel Stern has offices in Islandia, Garden City, and Mattituck. If you have questions regarding elder law and estate planning issues, feel free to give us a call at 631-234-3030. That's 631-234-3030. Or you can get us on the web at www.davidowlaw.com. That's www.davidowlaw.com. And we are proud and excited to bring you Senior Counsel here on LI News Radio, and really pleased to welcome our very special guest today, Heath Berger. Heath is a partner in the law firm of Berger, Fischoff, and Shumer here on Long Island. And Heath, it's great to have you here.
Great, Steve. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Your practice is primarily concentrated in what areas of the law? What kind of work are you doing?
My firm, basically, our main focus is in bankruptcy. We handle both consumer bankruptcy and we do corporate bankruptcies also. We probably do about 80% consumers, whether it's Chapter 7s or Chapter 13s, and the other 20% would be doing commercials, whether it's business, and various types of Chapter 11, bankruptcies. We're probably the second largest filer on Long Island. And that's kind of what we do every day.
And in addition to your practice, you're committed to education, letting community know the kind of work that you do and important issues that you raise for them. And you also host a radio program here on LI News Radio.
That's correct. We're on every Saturday, a little bit before you, at 1:30 p.m. And the show is called Financial Freedom.
All right. And so we had a great conversation earlier today, and we're continuing that conversation. And we were talking primarily about the synergy between an elder law and estate planning practice and the issues that we deal with on a daily basis with our clients and the kinds of issues that are raised in your office as well.
We did. And, it's surprising. And I know a lot of people who are listening are going, wait, there shouldn't be any relationship between the two. But actually, there's a great relationship between the two. And kind of as we were talking about, certain things that you end up doing in your practice, with estate planning and elder care actually could have a big impact on the clients that come to me as far as trying to file for a bankruptcy.
And we had said that one of the big issues, which would seem like a relatively simple issue, but becomes very important later on, is simply how assets are titled.
Absolutely. In a bankruptcy, the bankruptcy code requires everybody to list all their assets and all their liabilities. And the way in a Chapter 7 case is it's basically your assets are liquidated up and above an exemption amount to pay your creditors, and what's ever left gets wiped out. Now, 99% of the Chapter 7 bankruptcies that are filed are what we call no asset cases. New York State is a pretty decent exemption law which protects most of your assets. However, the complication becomes is there are assets that end up getting transferred in some type of estate planning that all of a sudden the debtor or the individual that comes into our office doesn't realize they're actually the title owner, and that now becomes an asset in their bankruptcy.
And nobody really had anticipated that at the time, right? Because it seemed like such a simple and cheap, cost-effective thing to do, simply to take the property out of my name and transfer it over to my son, let's say.
Right.
When years later, my son has creditor issues, perhaps bankruptcy issues. Now what's going up on the asset list potentially is my home.
Exactly. And what becomes even worse is if your home, you're still living in your home, and I'm not living in that home, I don't even get an exemption in that home. Right. So that entire value of that home is an asset, which now says I may not qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, or if I do, because in a lot of cases you went to the wrong attorney who didn't ask the right questions, all of a sudden mom and dad are getting a letter from a trustee saying, give me your house. Where's the keys?
That's right.
And trust me, mom and dad is not happy getting that call.
They want to protect their assets for themselves, for the next generation down. And unfortunately, I know you see this in your practice, what seems so simple winds up being the exact wrong thing to have done. And nobody has a crystal ball, obviously, but these are the kinds of things that one at least needs to consider a potential for, these are good kids.
Absolutely.
We love them. They're great. They're responsible for, most of the time anyway. We love them. We even love our in-laws most of the time. But whether it is a creditor or bankruptcy issue, and I'm sure you see this in your practice as well, a future potential marital issue, these are the kinds of things that have to really be discussed up front.
And again, even what ends up happening a lot of times, and as I try to explain, through my show and to clients, most people don't plan on filing bankruptcy. I mean, it's just something happens. It's some life-altering event, whether it's a loss of a job, whether it's a loss of overtime, whether it's medical, whether it's a divorce. So, when the estate planning starts, everything may be perfect. And 5 years down the road, all of a sudden, the child hits some kind of bump in the road. But what's important is that the child knows how the asset was transferred. Because a lot of times I find that they walk into me, they go, I think my parents said they did something with their house. I'm not really sure what it is. And my first thing I say to them is, call mom and dad. Let's get a copy of the deed so we can look at it. Because the last thing I want to see is mom and dad sitting on a street corner with no house.
That nobody anticipated or contemplated at the time, and that would be the worst position for everybody to end up in. You're listening to Senior Counsel here on LI News Radio. I'm Stephen Stern, partner in the law firm of Davidow, Siegel Stern, Long Island's elder law, special needs, and estate planning firm. If you have elder law and estate planning questions, you can give me a call at 631-234-3030. That's 631-234-3030, or you can get us on the web at www.davidowlaw.com. And we're speaking with our special guest today, Heath Berger. Heath is a partner in the law firm of Berger, Fischoff, and Shumer. Heath, if listeners have questions for you, they can get you how?
Absolutely. They could either give us a call at 516-747-1136 or 1-800-806-1136, or on the web at bfsbankruptcy.com.
So a client comes to you and says that I'm having some type of issue, a creditor issue, an asset protection issue, a bankruptcy, and you're mindful of not just the issues that pertain to them in their own lives, but potentially what's going on around them with family members, particularly their parents. So during the initial meeting with them, how do you raise that as an issue? What kinds of information and documentation are you asking for?
What we try to do is we try to get a whole picture. So one of the things, obviously, we always talk about is, do you own any real estate? Have you ever owned any real estate? We talk about, has your parents owned any real estate? Has any real estate been transferred into your name? So we try to get the whole picture as far as any real estate. We then start talking about bank accounts. And again, do you own any bank accounts? Is your name on any bank accounts? Are you a signator on a bank account? Once the conversation starts going that way, you're always going to get every once in a while the person saying, I know dad told me that we did something with the house, or we did something with a bank account. Or you get the thing, oh yeah, I'm just a signator on mom's account because I help her do her banking. I said, okay, I want to see a copy of the bank statement so I could actually see how the ownership is set up.
Right. I think one thing that we both know very well is that you can ask the question, you could get an answer, but until you see it in black and white, until you read the documentation, you don't really know until you see it definitively.
As a matter
of
fact, I had a client the other day come in and goes, I'm just a signator on my mom's account. I go, okay, do me a favor. Just bring me the account statement in. I look at the account statement, and they're both on title to the account with about $70,000 in the account. I go, that's a problem. And we had to do some other stuff, and we did a different type of bankruptcy, and we were able to resolve the problem. But had I not looked at that, or had I not asked the question, that money may have been at risk in a bankruptcy. And that's what we don't want to do. Our job and your job is to protect our clients to the best that we can.
And that means and really requires that a family together be proactive in recognizing the issue, proactive in speaking with someone like you who can at least help guide them on some of the decisions that they might need to make in advance. But also if you get someone who's now in that situation, that all hope might not be lost, even at that late date, there still are things that they can and should be doing.
Absolutely. There's different types of bankruptcies that we can do. There's different plans we can set up to protect mom and dad's assets and to attempt to wipe out your liabilities. So between the two, there are enough things in the bankruptcy code that allows us to take advantage of in order to protect them.
And Heath, if listeners have questions for you, they can get you how?
Sure, they could give us a call at 1-800-806-1136 or 516-747-1136. Or on the web at bfsbankruptcy.com.
All right. And we're speaking with Heath Berger, partner in the law firm of Berger, Fischoff, and Shumer here on Long Island. And we're talking about many of the issues that we deal with in both of our practices and the synergy between them. And we're going to, when we return here on Senior Counsel, we're going to be talking about some of the solutions that older adults and their families should be considering when they are dealing with these issues in their own lives. You're listening. We're back here on Senior Counsel, and my name is Stephen Stern. I'm a partner in the law firm of Davidow, Siegel Stern, Long Island's elder law, special needs, and estate planning firm, where the best advice leads to lasting solutions. Proud to bring you Senior Counsel here on LI News Radio. And for our listeners, if you have any questions regarding elder law, estate planning concerns, you can always feel free to give us a call at 631-234-3030. That's 631-234-3030. Or you can get us on the web at www.davidowlaw.com. That is www.davidowlaw.com. And we are pleased to continue our conversation with our special guest today, Heath Berger. Heath is a partner in the law firm of Berger, Fischoff, and Shumer, and we've been discussing the important synergies between an elder law practice and a bankruptcy, matrimonial, asset protection practice, and some of the considerations that we both have to deal with on a daily basis when we're working with our clients and their families. And some of the big issues that you see, maybe a big issue that so many of us aren't aware of that can come and get us if we're not careful, if we're not looking out for it. What would be an example of that you see in your practice?
Actually, probably the biggest issue that we see, which is the one issue that you just can't plan for, is if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and somebody passes away within 180 days of filing that bankruptcy, whatever that your interest in that estate is actually an asset in your bankruptcy. And that money could actually be used to pay your creditors with. If you file a Chapter 13, it's the same thing. That money has to be used to pay your creditors with too. The Chapter 7 is limited to 180 days. The Chapter 13 would be during the entire life of your reorganized plan. So it's one of those really weird things. I mean, I have to say, in 22 years, 25,000 bankruptcies, I've had it happen probably about 5 or 6 times. But two issues really that has to be dealt with. And I'll go forward going and looking back. If somebody does pass away within that 180 days after the bankruptcy, you have to notify your attorney, both the estate attorney, who's going to be trying to probate a will, because that could cause problems on your end, and your bankruptcy attorney, because they have to notify the trustee. The other interesting issue, and we've had this a couple of times, where somebody passed away and you're not sure if you're going to inherit any money, but you fail to list that in your bankruptcy, that could come back to bite you also, because if you don't list your assets, that you could actually not be able to inherit any of that money. And again, all that money could be going to pay your creditors with. So it's important to always advise the attorney that's handling the estate that either I file bankruptcy or I'm going to be filing bankruptcy.
All right. And so strategy becomes very important.
Absolutely.
Proactively, and even at that late date, when things are about to go up on a list, what can and should someone be doing? And so, taking the present and working backwards, I'm sure you're working with clients in an estate proceeding where decisions have to be made right away. Do I receive those assets and then have to throw them up on a list? Do I have an interest in those assets even before I receive them and have to put them up on a list? Are they part of the proceeding? Can, even at that late date, execute a renunciation so that I can have it maybe bypass me and go to others? Can I still do it? Is it timely? I'm sure you see that quite often.
We do. And actually, that's an important issue. It's important for the clients to let us know that somebody passed away and there is an inheritance that may be coming. And a lot of the questions really deal with how much are you getting? If it's a couple of $1,000s, we have exemptions that could protect it. But if you're all of a sudden talking about, I got a house with no mortgage coming to me and I got all that, then those are decisions we have to make. Does it make sense to even file a bankruptcy? Maybe we want to put you into a 13 because if it's going to take a number of years to probate the estate, but you got all these creditors on you, let's do it this way and we'll deal with when the estate comes in, paying off the debts at that point. But yeah, it does become an important issue when they come in. Do we renounce your interest in it so you don't get any money? It may go to your family members or your siblings or to your children. But yeah, those become very important discussions. But it's important that the clients let us know that there is an estate pending. And that's usually one of my top 10 questions that I ask clients. Has anybody passed away or has anybody recently passed away that you know of?
Sure. And so on your end, you have to, when you're having that conversation with the client, of course, you want full disclosure from them so that you know how best to represent them. And on our end, it's just as important when we're having that initial consultation with an older adult, a parent who has children and wants to make planning moves to protect their assets, that they have a conversation with their child or children and even in-laws to determine what's going on in their lives. Do they have creditors? Do they have potential bankruptcy issues? How is their marriage? When they come over, of course, I'm sure it's all smiles. But at the end of the day, if it's not rock solid, if a parent has even a consideration that there might be some type of matrimonial proceeding years from now, well, that can have an impact on what, as of right now, is my home.
Yep.
And we could talk about strategy and we could talk about numbers and we could talk about chapters in the bankruptcy code, but ultimately, these decisions can have really dramatic, meaningful, and in too many situations, some real negative impacts where an awful lot can be lost.
Absolutely. And that's kind of a key thing. I mean, I have a case going on in my office now where it's exactly that scenario. Father transfers house to son. The parties live together. 7 years later, now they're getting a divorce. And now the issue becomes the house, the appreciated value of the house. Is there a credit for what the value was upon the transfer? And all of a sudden, dad's going, wait, what happened to my house? Why is everybody fighting over it? I had my plan. It was my son's house.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, the laws don't always work that way. And at the end of the day, what you thought you were given to party A can now be given to party B, C, D, or creditors of party A, B, C, and D. And that's why you're right. It's important that when people come in for this planning is that they know where their children or their family are today. And, you're right. You have to look ahead. Can't always plan ahead, but you got to do that. And it goes back to one of the things I tell clients all the time. A lot of people like to put their head in the sand of what's going on today. Right. And we see that. I mean, I just got a call yesterday from a client whose house is being auctioned off on Monday. I'm like, okay, we could stop it. I could file a bankruptcy and I could stop the foreclosure action and get you back on track. As a matter of fact, there was 3 clients this week in that scenario. I go, didn't you know about this a couple of months ago? We could have kind of gotten you on track a little bit quicker. Right. But a lot of people put their head in the sand when it comes to debts and obligations. So it's important, especially if they're going to sit and do some financial planning or estate planning for their parents, that they know what's going on so they can advise their parents what's going on to protect their assets.
And that's something that we're not only seeing more and more of as so many families are either going through marital issues or foreclosure issues and bankruptcy issues. And that is an unfortunate part of what's going on within too many communities on Long Island today. But the conversation that we're having with more and more and really strongly recommending these days, because you just don't know. Nobody has a crystal ball. You don't know where it's all going to go in so many cases, that we utilize much more trust structures, whether that is under somebody's will or even the kind of trust that one might create today, so that if I want to protect an asset like a home, I can transfer the asset to not to a family member personally, but into a special type of a trust. I can maintain some kind of strings of control over it. I might be able to maintain tax exemptions. And upon my passing, the asset won't go to an individual, but can be held in ongoing trust for their benefit. This can provide for a lot more protection, a lot more benefits for me during my lifetime in terms of maintaining control and my independence, but at the same time ensure that if there is going to be an inheritance, that it ultimately is protected for the next generation down.
And also, just take that to the next step, that also protects against the creditors of the person that you were originally doing the transfer to, of seizing that asset. Once it's in a trust, if I owe a creditor money and they have a judgment against me, and I guess instead of my parents transferring a house to me subject to a life estate, which now my creditors could grab, you're putting it into a trust, my creditors can't grab it. So that's a great plan and a great financial plan to kind of protect everybody.
A much better move. And we had said this earlier, there are deed transfers, there are life estates, the kinds of things that I usually recommend strongly against, but they seem so easy. They seem so cost effective.
Right.
The problem is, in many situations, too many situations, you do that kind of a plan. It feels good at the moment. Years later, it comes back to get you. Heath, it was great to have you with us today.
Oh, it was great being here, and I appreciate you being on my show. We definitely have to do this again.
Absolutely. And listeners can listen to you on LI News Radio when and where?
Saturdays at 4:30, a little bit before your show, or they could give us a call at 516-747-1136 or 1-800-806-1136.
All right. Heath Berger, partner in the law firm of Berger, Fischoff, and Shumer. Great to have you with us today. I'm Stephen Stern, partner in the law firm of Davidow, Siegel, and Stern, Long Island's elder law estate planning firm. And you can get us on the web at www.davidowlaw.com or 631-234-3030. We look forward to seeing you next time.